Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Sustainable Food Cities webinar. My name is Sofia Parente. I'm the campaigns coordinator for Sustainable Food Cities, and I'll be welcoming participants and speakers for this webinar. A few housekeeping notes just before we start. This webinar is being recorded, so you will have a link to hear and to share this webinar after we finish. The presentations you will see later will also become available, so no need to make crazy notes. And they will also be with you after the meeting. I would like to encourage everyone to use the chat function on the left-hand side of your screen. You can use this to ask questions, to write your suggestions, to share any links with programs or anything else you want to share with the participants and the speakers throughout the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have time for questions and answers. So without further ado, I would like to start with a brief introduction to Sustainable Food Cities before I pass on to our presenters, Tess and Hannah. So just for those who don't know who we are at Sustainable Food Cities, so we're a movement of over 50 cities and towns now, and we're all over the UK. And these places, they share the same approach for transforming food and food culture. So the approach is all about reshaping the local area through the lens of good food. And our approach is through the 3 Ps, and these are partnership. It's all about establishing a cross-sector food partnership that involves all the key stakeholders, and this often involves public agencies, businesses, NGOs, academics. The second P is for policy, incorporating healthy and sustainable food into local policy, strategy, and planning. And the third P is for putting good food as the norm. So this means developing and delivering a food strategy and action plan to tackle the key food challenges in the local area. So in developing their programs, we encourage all the local areas to think about good food across the 6 key areas that you see on your screen. And this approach is a tried and tested model for driving positive change locally and to work towards good food. And if your city or local area would like to know more, just get in touch, and a member of our team will be able to help you. And so this webinar is facilitated by Veg Cities, which is one of the feature campaigns of Sustainable Food Cities. And I'm the campaign coordinator for that campaign. So this campaign is led by food and farming charity Sustain in partnership with the wider Peas Please initiative. And the aim of Veg Cities is to increase availability and consumption of vegetables. And there's currently 22 cities and other local areas running campaigns and developing activity across the 6 key issues that you've seen in the previous slide. And some veg cities are concentrating their efforts in areas of higher deprivation because we know people on lower incomes eat even less vegetables. So they're setting up veg stands, they're running cooking classes in the community. Some of them are really encouraging more food being grown in community growing spaces, improving the uptake of Healthy Start vouchers. Others are working towards getting more locally grown veg into local supply chains. So it's all about getting people to eat more vegetables. So if your city or local area is not yet involved and you would like to know more, do get in touch. It's easy to join the campaign. And what some food partnerships tell us about Veg Cities is that it's giving them a new impetus in the food partnership. It's helping to bring people and organizations together under the same campaign banner. And one of the areas that a lot of cities are interested in is in reducing food waste. So as part of Veg Cities, I'd love to see many organizations across the UK involved in a pumpkin rescue this autumn. And you will hear all about this initiative in this webinar. But I will just say that it's a brilliant opportunity to start a conversation around food waste and to put your organization in the map. So this webinar will really take you through the background of the Pumpkin Rescue Initiative and how to get involved. And you will also hear from Good Food Oxford, who's been organising a citywide pumpkin rescue festival for a few years. So I hope you get inspired and I hope you get involved. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to our first presenter, Tessa Trix from Hubbub, who will give you all the background and information about pumpkin rescue. Up to you, Tessa.
Great, thank you, Sophia, and hello everyone. Thanks so much for having me on to talk about the pumpkin rescue. So very quickly, for anyone that's not familiar with Hubbub, we're an environmental charity. Our ambition really is to inspire healthier, greener lifestyles by tapping into people's interests and talking about things that are really tangible and relevant day to day. So as such, we theme our work around food, fashion, homes and neighbourhoods. Our food work predominantly looks at how can we reduce food waste, how can we increase food skills, and how can we get people to eat a bit less meat and more plant-based protein and just more plants. So the Pumpkin Rescue clearly fits within our ambition of reducing food waste, but it's also a lovely celebration of local seasonal food. It was the first campaign we ever ran when we started back in 2014, and we ran it in collaboration with Good Food Oxford, so it's very exciting to be back here today with Hannah. In essence, the campaign uses the 18,000 tonnes of pumpkin that go to landfill each year as a hook to talk about food waste. We find that the pumpkin itself is very engaging for people. They tend to anthropomorphize it. There's something about the kind of the simplicity of the message that people will be buying a pumpkin, they'll be carving a pumpkin. Oh, and you can eat it. It's immediately accessible for everyone. They can eat the message and you're done. This will be our 6th year running the campaign, and this year, as we've done in previous years, we'll be offering a free open source campaign pack for any individual or community group wanting to run their own pumpkin rescue festival. I'll give you a sense of what a festival might entail shortly, but you will have to believe me that it's not too daunting. We've revised the guidance year on year over the last 5 years. So if you have come across an old pack, then I would recommend that you bin it and get in touch for a new one this year. Then you know, we've revised them based on people's experience. So we think they've got a little bit slicker through the years. So I wanted to just give you, oh, sorry, I've slipped. Jumping ahead of myself. Great. So I wanted to give you a quick snapshot of how the interest has grown year on year. It's, as I said, a very simple concept. It's easy for community groups to take up, but it's also really easy for the press to engage with. So in our first year, which we ran with Oxford, Good Food Oxford, we just had one festival, and off the back of that, we went away and wrote a how-to guide, which generated a huge amount of interest. The next year, 24 festivals and so on. And actually what we found is that each year has managed to generate a huge amount of press coverage. I think we've been worried at times that the media will get bored of the issue, but I think food waste is still really high on the public agenda, and this campaign is really able to capture people's imaginations. So we hope that this pack and our coordinated efforts this year will mean that we're able to kind of enable a greater number of people to mobilise about it, but make a great shout on social media and hopefully garner some wider press interest. So to give you a quick sense of what can be achieved en masse, there we go. To date, we have had 239 local events under the Pumpkin Rescue banner, which have been run by over 50 groups from around the UK. There's also been some in the States and Southeast Asia, which is exciting. And we've had kind of a genuine footfall of nearly 14,000 people. Now, you may be wondering, what does a pumpkin rescue event look like? What is this? A festival can be slightly overwhelming, I imagine, for many people to get your head around. And I think that the good news is that a Pumpkin Rescue Festival can be a citywide event, as Hannah will introduce you to shortly, as they've done in Oxford year on year, or it can just be something as simple as a stall, a cooking demo. We've had community gardens scraping out all of their gourds and playing music with them. We've had amateur theatrics. We've had people going on gleans. We've had, people trying to get in the Guinness Book of World Records with the greatest pumpkin soup. There've been very neat workshops where children have kind of come together, carved their pumpkin, and learnt to make a really simple soup and a soda bread. The festival really lends itself well to a huge variety of audiences and activities, and they all come together under the banner of one simple message, which is to eat your pumpkin. The kind of active number of pumpkins that we've seen being diverted from landfill has been nearly 18,000, and that's looking at directly what's being used and put into a soup, and a soup or a pie or a curry, whatever you like. Pumpkins are very versatile and delicious. And the media highlights have ranged from things like BBC World News to more regional outlets. And as you can see, Hannah can't hear me. Would anybody else send a message? Can everybody else hear me? Okay, great. Thanks, Sophia. Thank you, everyone. Sorry. Great. I will just shout, particularly in the direction of Oxford then. So just to summarise, media traction has been great, which is obviously useful for those organising it, wanting really to get their own organisations in the limelight. This provides a really useful seasonal way to do that, because it gets to Halloween and journalists are wringing their hands thinking, oh, what can we write about? And there's nothing nicer at the moment than an environmental story that brings together seasonality, children, good food. Great. So really just trying to emphasize here that there is something for everyone in this festival, whatever size. So simple message can be eat your pumpkin, but it's also an opportunity to have a celebration of seasonal local food. As I'm sure we all know, pumpkins, gourds, squash come in every shape, size and colour that you can imagine. And this is a really nice way to engage people with growing and biodiversity, but composting, cooking. There are a million options that the Pumpkin Festival can open up for you, and within that it's really yours to make your own and shape in a way that works for the group. I will talk you through shortly what we provide in terms of basic frameworks, but you can get as creative as you want, and as long as the event is involving pumpkins and sustainable food, we will promote it under the Pumpkin Rescue banner. Clearly, it's community-led, and what we find is that the message itself of Eat Your Pumpkin, opening up conversations with the public about how they can reduce their food waste year-round, is quite compelling, saves people money, gives them the opportunity to get out, meet new people, and have new skills. If anyone would like any info, just kind of basic introductions to what people can do to reduce food waste at home, then We have more content on that than you could shake a stick at. So let me know, and I can send some backup resources. But the basics are covered in the pack that we'll be able to share. Right. So I'm not going to read out all of these quotes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm overzealously clicking. Move back. So I've just pulled together a number of quotes to give you a taste of the different stakeholders that have been involved over the years. So we've had the Foodini Club, that are a supper club in Brighton, doing their own zany pumpkin pop-up, where they've raised funds and then put it towards their organisation by doing kind of exotic pumpkin feasts in the evenings. We've had Doncaster Metropolitan Borough Council that have used it as a really great opportunity to talk about food waste and get kids cooking. As they say, a really nice, cheery event to add into their calendar. And we've had pumpkin farms getting involved and just handing out simple recipes as well. And that's worked really neatly for them. So do get creative about who you speak to about the campaign, and see how it can be amplified by different shops and stores and groups locally, as well as just through your own communications. So the resource pack this year will be ready probably towards the end of next week, and it will entail a how-to guide that's a bit of an A to Z of everything that you might want to think about in running a pet festival, along with some simple ideas for the events that you might want to put on, but don't let the programming that we've suggested be too prescriptive. We've also put in a bit of guidance on project management, but if you would like things like events plans or risk assessments, you can just ask and I can send you over a plethora of further resources. We've also included things like fact sheets with the basic info on food waste in the UK, food waste reduction, pumpkin waste, and we've done quite a bit of public polling over the years that have looked at actually public's perception of pumpkins, the crazy number of people that don't eat their pumpkin carvings, people that don't even think to compost it. So you can kind of have a number of quick facts in your back pocket to wow the public with. We've got a number of recipe cards, from simple pumpkin soups to more fancy pies, curries, smoothies, cocktails, you name it. And there's also a huge or a plethora of pumpkin recipes on our website as well, which we can all share through the social media campaign. And you're all very welcome to share your own local recipes under the hashtag as well. We'd love more. We've got some very simple kids resources, talking about how you might want to run a simple workshop for kids where you're carving, cooking and eating. There are some simple tips for just getting kids cooking and excited about food as well. If there's anything that you think might be useful for others to take on that you've done yourselves under the Sustainable Food Cities or Veg Cities initiatives, let us know. And there's also a communications package which has just an overview of the comms plan, some social media posts, social media cards, and some media releases. We'll be sharing a citywide press release for you, and just a kind of event level press release as well, which you can just insert your event info into and send out to local journalists. Finally, and by far the least exciting, is the monitoring framework. We'd love to know what impacts the festival is having year on year. So we've put together a kind of quite a simple framework, which we'd love you to feed in as appropriate. And it's just looking at things like how many people have come to your events, how many pumpkins have you used. And I'll be following up with everyone that's registered at the end with a bit of a survey monkey with a small incentive for doing that. So please don't skip that part of the resource pack. Here's an example of a social media card that will be within the pack itself. And next are just the key timings. no, this is the breakdown of the communications pack, sorry. So what we'd like to do is have everyone sharing comms using the same hashtag pumpkin rescue, tag in Hubbub, tag in food cities, tag in sustain, tag in veg cities, as much or as little as you can, and we'll all retweet and repost. We will share everyone's event on the Hubbub website. So that's a really simple way for us to kind of signpost all press that are interested in what's going on locally. If you let us know what you've got going on, we'll add it on there. If you don't, not the end of the world. There will be localised media releases, and potentially we may do a national media release depending on the number of sign-ups and the activities that go on. Watch this space. And we will be afterwards sharing the impact. As I said, we'd love you to share your own pumpkin recipes, and we'll have a bit of a competition for the best that's shared under the hashtag pumpkin rescue. So watch out for more on that. So timings, if you'd like to register your interest now, please do, and I will send out a resource pack to you. It will be by the end of July at the latest. Then we're here if you have any questions or ideas or need further resources. You can just drop us an email and we'll give you a call or message you back, whatever works, to help you find something that works for your community. As I say, we've tried to keep the pack quite simple this year, but we've built up quite an armory of resources over the last 5 years. So if you don't see it in there, but there's something you would like, then just keep us posted. We presume and hope that in September you'll be planning. And then in October, if you could just let us know what you've got going on, that would be fantastic. I'll put it on the website. I'll share a final communications package with everyone. There's a bit of a taster in the original pack, but we'll probably add to that, and we'll add any details of national media that's going on at that time. Then in November, as I've stressed already, we'll be following up just to see how everyone got on, and using this as an opportunity really to celebrate the strength of the Food Cities Network and the Pumpkin Rescue community. So that's largely it from me on the Pumpkin Rescue. I will pass over to Hannah, who will give you kind of bring the concept to life for you, I hope. But first of all, I just wanted to flag that the Pumpkin Rescue is part of a number of seasonal campaigns that we run here at Hubbub. And at the moment, we've just launched Traveller's Check, which sets to tackle the £500 million worth of food that's binned each year as people head off on holiday. So it's got a wealth of timely and fun content for holidaymakers before they head off on holiday. So it's very much looking at check your fridge before you check in. Freeze things, share it with your neighbour, put it in a community fridge, or just eat it as your last meal before you go on holiday. It couldn't be more simple, but it hopes to kind of just intervene at that point where people are jetting off with fridges full and they could just easily pop their milk in the fridge. So if you'd like a comms pack for Traveller's Check, drop me an email. You can reach us on campaigns@hubbub.org.uk. So I think that's it from me. We'll have scope for questions at the end. So I think it's time now for me to hand on over to Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tessa. Don't forget to keep typing your questions, suggestions, ideas using the attendee chat on the left-hand side of your screen. We will have time for some questions and answers after Hannah's presentation. So Hannah, up to you now. Thank you.
Hello everybody, can you hear me? Great. So you will see through this presentation that I love pumpkins, and my love affair with the humble pumpkin started in 2014. The Pumpkin Festival, which we ran with Hubbub. My name's Hannah. I'm the manager of Good Food Oxford, and we're a network of 130 organisations. We're working together for a better food system for Oxford. The network is open to anyone with an interest in food and food production. It aims to bring together citizens, local authorities, businesses, academics, community groups, and other stakeholders. And we are all working together towards for healthy, fair, sustainable. So Oxford is part of the Sustainable Food Cities network of more than 50 cities now working together in a similar way for collective impact on the food system. And in 2018, we were really proud that Oxford achieved a Sustainable Food Cities Bronze Award for comprehensive collective action against 6 key issues. And one of these is for promoting healthy and sustainable food to the public, as Sophia said. Now, this is an image from the first Oxford Pumpkin Festival in 2014, when we created a big public display of surplus pumpkins in the middle of Bond Square, outside our big shopping centre. These had all been gleaned from a local farm and would have been ploughed back into the field if they hadn't been rescued. The board displays one of the festival's key messages, that a shocking 18,000 tonnes of pumpkins are binned each Halloween. And you've already heard from Tessa about how this happens. Research from Hubbub found that when people carve a pumpkin for Halloween, about 2/3 of them throw away the perfectly edible flesh instead of eating it. And we want to do something about it. So harking back to 2014, I'm going to ask Sophia to show part of a video of how we did it.
We conducted a survey and we found that 2/3 of pumpkins get thrown straight into the bin at Halloween, and that's an estimated 18,000 tonnes of pumpkin, which is the equivalent weight of 1,500 double-decker buses. We're here to make food waste a thing of the past. Welcome to the Oxford Pumpkin Festival.
Disco Soup is. It's part of actually an international grassroots movement, trying to get people to engage with food waste through bringing large amounts of food waste to a big public place like here today, and getting people to join in cooking it and eating it and realise that actually a lot of the food that gets thrown away is really delicious and edible. One big thing about Disco Soup is that we don't ask for any money for soup. What we really want to highlight is that the quantities of food waste are so large that we can put on a massive event and feed, I think at the minute we've fed 500 people.
The Oxford Pumpkin Festival is about squashing food waste in Oxford. It's open to everybody to come and cook together and eat together, and trying to get the message out about how crazy it is to throw so much good food in the bin.
Okay, so we're not going to show the rest of the video, but you can see the whole of it on YouTube. And I'm just going to talk you through the end of it, give you it audio described if you like. So, it's fun. Music, dancing, kids playing with the pumpkins, getting their faces painted. It's a great atmosphere. And the aim of the event is to turn food waste into a feast and make it really visible and make a spectacle in the middle of the city. The rows of pumpkins that you'll see around the statue, there's a help yourself sign. People were helping themselves all day, and some people were taking those pumpkins to make something luxurious, and some people were really taking that as a important source of food that they might not have been able to afford otherwise. As well as the big public event in Bond Square, there were loads of events happening around the city, including a scratch feast, taking people through the food chain and eating food that would otherwise be wasted. So the video finishes with Gavin from Hubbub saying, looking around you, you can see all the things that can be done with food that would otherwise have been thrown in the bin. And each year, the average family wastes £480 per year on edible food and drink. This year's Oxford Pumpkin Festival has been amazing, he says, and we can't wait to do it again in Oxford and elsewhere. See you then. So do check out that full video if you'd like to on YouTube. So that was the first Pumpkin Festival in 2014. It was a collaboration with Hubbub, which means our coordinator and their team worked together to put on loads of events around the city and make the most of local and national media to really make a huge noise and amplify all that we were doing. In total, we ran 23 events and saved 3.3 tonnes of food from being wasted. But I think the key thing was the massive media interest and coverage, which really made us feel we were getting the message out and making a difference. You could put Pumpkin Festival into any of the 6 key issues, well, at least 3 of the 6 key issues from Sustainable Food Cities, but we really think that public engagement is the one where it really packs a punch. So we've run an Oxford Pumpkin Festival every year since then, and we've settled down to a pattern of around 16 events locally, with plenty of local media coverage and social media, and Hubbub making a big impression nationally. The approach we take is quite light touch, which you might be interested in. We designate 9 days around and just after Halloween, so that's 2 weekends with a week in between. And a lot of community groups are running Halloween events during this time anyway, so we get in touch with them and ask them if they'd like to make sure the pumpkins they're carving don't go to waste. All they need to do is cook and eat the flesh they've carved rather than throwing it in the bin. Everyone cares about food waste, so it's pretty easy to convince them. And then there are our natural allies, community gardens, food surplus community groups, and so on, who are willing to run events at the right time to be part of the Pumpkin Festival. We always try to do a big public disco soup as a headline event, as you saw in the video. And our supportive farms and farmers markets also get involved. For our local organic farm, it's a bumper harvest time of year, so they always run a pumpkin day, and they're keen to share the message that buying a delicious local organic pumpkin is far better than a horrible carving pumpkin from the supermarket, which is not delicious and really shouldn't exist. Why not carve an eating pumpkin instead? Even better, why not buy it locally too? So farmers love that message. Our local chefs and restaurants get involved in quite a creative way. They serve pumpkin-themed menus, but importantly, they contribute recipes for our recipe cards, which are available in their restaurants and which we also distribute at all the Pumpkin Festival community events, as well as at the farmers markets. So they get publicity locally. And we say it counts as a Pumpkin Festival event if you're giving out recipe cards and you're encouraging people to eat their pumpkin flesh, not just carve it and throw it away. So we're not just interested in promoting Halloween events, it has to be about pumpkin rescue. Sometimes our city and county council get involved. They run Love Food Hate Waste stalls at events, and they tend to offer a trip to our local anaerobic digester just after Halloween, when the whole place turns orange from all the pumpkin shells put in the food waste bins. We're really lucky we have a local poster distribution company that's very supportive, so it's fairly easy and cheap for us to edit and print the Hubbub poster template and get it put up widely around the city. Our local radio station, newspapers, bloggers and podcasts are also primed and ready and willing to spread the word. More on why that is later. And one of the elements of taking a light touch approach is that we offer £50 mini grants to 8 of our participating community groups. So they can apply for funding for things like face paints, firewood, printing, additional ingredients, reusable cups, and so on. One group even bought a Dutch oven to cook their pumpkin outside over an open fire, which they could then use in future years. So about half of our events are given a £50 mini grant. So in total, it only costs us about £600, £200 for printing and social media boosts, and £400 for the mini grants, plus around 4 days of officer time. So I thought I'd talk through about what our coordinator Nina is going to be doing this year. So first of all, we have to fundraise the £600, and we're trying to get that from supportive local partners and network members. Then we need to gather the partners, the City and County Council, our local food redistribution charity, Oxford Food Bank, Hubbub and Veg Cities, make sure we're linking in with them. Then we sign up the community groups to run events and allocate their mini grants. We do that through an online form, and we secure a commitment from them to report back. I'll tell you more about that and how we do it. We source surplus pumpkins largely from our food surplus redistribution charity, although occasionally we have managed to go gleaning on a farm, which requires a van. And we also promote the events on our website, online listings in Oxford, social media, through the posters which I mentioned, and we do a press release. We then source the recipes from our chefs and restaurants, and we print and deliver the recipe cards to the people running those events. When people come forward to volunteer, which they often do, we send volunteers towards the events rather than necessarily holding onto them for ourselves. And we do the promotion during the festival. So that's things like social media, radio interviews, gathering and sharing photos. And we then gather the monitoring and evaluation figures and report back to Hubbub and Veg Cities. Okay, we're going to stay here. So something you need to look out for. The media love this story and take it up willingly, but they seem to think you're now the authority on all things pumpkin related. So be prepared to field odd questions like, how many varieties of squash are there? The answer, lots. And did you know that at Halloween, when they're carved, 2/3 of them go to waste? That's a scary surplus. And I've brought you some delicious pumpkin brownies that you could make from the pumpkin flesh instead of throwing it away. So always try and send the questions back to your key messages. With M&E, we find it's good to get our event organisers to estimate how many people they will have coming, how many pumpkins they're going to use, and how many meals they're going to cook. That way, after the event, you have a good way of getting them to come back to you with what they actually achieved. Make it a little bit of a competition. So, as Tessa said very clearly, there are some fantastic resources from Hubbub, including social media images, poster templates, and the hashtag pumpkin rescue is key. Also, the tone is really great. They're very good with puns, which the media love. So why now? How did I get to be so in love with the humble pumpkin, and why focus on Halloween when food waste is an issue all year round? Well, quite simply, people get it and they love it. When you focus on a single event, on a single activity, and ask people to think about it and change just one thing, then they do, and you amplify the whole issue. You give people a fun and simple single thing to get involved with, they do it and enjoy it, and they become committed to the issue of food waste and the wider issue of food sourcing and on-farm waste and the ridiculous concept of a carving pumpkin and the massive waste in our global food system, and they feel they can do something about it, and they become food waste champions. And it's fun and manageable and a bit silly, so they love it. And some years there really is a genuine glut, and our local farms are genuinely grateful to us for helping them shift their surplus. In this kind of tropical weather, which alternates between wet and hot that we've been having, there really is a surplus that I'm hearing about from our local farms. And the media get it too. They love the silly images of kids eating a big pumpkin with a spoon, and they like talking to people about what creative things they've done to rescue their pumpkin and save it from going to waste. They like tasting the results and reporting back, and they love the puns, such as squash food waste, spooky surplus, food waste is scary, don't let your pumpkin meet a tragic end, and so on. And it is a real single issue problem that people can do something about. There is one thing to be aware of, as well as the becoming a authority on all things pumpkins, and that is that sometimes people look at me with confusion and say, how can I possibly eat my pumpkin after it's been outside with a candle in it? That sounds disgusting. And they're right. What we're asking people to do is carve the pumpkin and cook and eat the flesh. They can, of course, refrigerate or freeze it for later and not eat the carved out shell. So that's just a little thing to be careful of. So I would say it's amazing. You can generate so much wonderful positive energy around addressing the food waste issue. You will fall in love with pumpkins too. You can reach new people who wouldn't normally think about it, and it's a huge amount of fun. So do check out the Hubbub, put some time aside and go for it.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for that presentation. I hope everyone is excited and motivated to join the pumpkin rescue this year. Now we have a bit of time for questions. We have a few that have come in during the presentations. So I'm going to read them and invite our presenters to address them. But if you have any other questions, suggestions, ideas, please carry on typing them in the attendee chat. So the first question that we have is from Peter, and it's about the supermarkets. Has anyone talked to supermarkets about labeling pumpkins as carving pumpkins? Is this a role for Peace Please? So you're very right in raising this issue, because we know that a lot of waste is generated in carving pumpkins, and they're throwing the carvings away when they could be eaten. So as you probably know, we are linking up with Peace Please, and all the major supermarkets have made pledges under the Peace Please initiative to depending on the supermarket, some of them pledge to promote their vegetable lines, promote recipes, promotions, etc. So we are talking with them, with Peace Please, regarding this initiative, and let's see what comes out of it. Now I know Hannah and Tessa probably have a lot more experience because they've been running the initiative for a number of years. So if you want to say something, Tessa or Hannah, about how the messaging can help to let the message across that pumpkins are not waste. You can perfectly eat the carvings, and if you have any experience of trying to approach supermarkets.
Great. This is Tessa. So we've kind of informally mentioned it to supermarkets before, but I don't think they've taken much mind to listen to us. So I think Peace Please corralling around the issue would be superb. What we have done is try and myth bust the idea that carving pumpkins are inedible and just for carving. I think the label is a complete misnomer. I think, as Hannah has completely said, the carving pumpkins don't have the same taste or probably nutritional value as some of the more heritage varieties, but that's not to say that they can't be eaten. So what we've done is we've got the very simple infographic that I think Hannah put up on her slide that shows that you can eat every different part of the pumpkin apart from the stalk, where we've got kind of recipes for the seeds inside, the stringy bits. Oh, thank you, Hannah. The stringy bits can be steeped to what we kind of call pumpkin guts to make a kind of tea. Then any bits of the flesh and the skin of the carving pumpkins, they tend to be a bit fibrous and a bit watery, but they go really well in curries and soups and will bulk things up. Whereas I think if you've got, and this is often what happens if you're gleaning or talking to a pumpkin farm, they might give you some more heritage varieties, then these are sweeter and denser and really great for baking and making pies and things, or just eating on their own. But the carving pumpkins, I think there's a role for us all to kind of prod the supermarkets and then align our communications to make sure that everyone knows that they can be eaten, and they're just a great addition to a soup or a stew. Hannah, sorry, anything to add? I jumped right in there.
No, I think that's it. I think that's it covered.
Yeah, linked up to this question from Chrissy, which you already covered actually, Tessa, but if you or Hannah want to say anything else about this. Many of the pumpkins which are sold for carving are grown for size rather than taste. Does this make a difference in using the flesh, and how much flesh is usable once we take out all the seeds? So there's a nice thread of suggestions in the chat already, so I invite everyone to read what others are saying. But Tessa or Hannah, if you want to say anything else about this point.
I would say, like Tess, that they are good to bulk up soups and stews, and I think that kind of flesh would probably be absolutely. The taste of pumpkin isn't the main flavour if you've got chocolate as well. Yeah, so I think flavour-wise, it's fine. It's a bit watery, but there's lots that you can do when you're not looking for the pumpkin flavour to be the main flavour. I think just in terms of the messaging of carving pumpkin, I mentioned it already, but I just find it really distressing. And it's only recently, in the past couple of years, that supermarkets have actually started to label the pumpkins, and the farms are obviously carving pumpkins to order, and we really want all the pumpkins that are available in the supermarkets to be eating pumpkins, which you can also carve. So we have had a little bit of a chat in the chat boxes about going back to the source and talking to the supermarkets. But in the meantime, I really do like to myth bust if at all possible.
Yeah, I share Hannah's distress there, and I think, just to be clear, the carving pumpkins, the main distinguishing feature is that they're bred to have thinner walls, so they're easier to get a knife through. So I think there's a bit of a job if you're trying to do recipes and quantify, how many pumpkins you need, you'll need to do it on the kind of grams of actual flesh. That said, I have made a pumpkin pie from carving pumpkin, and because it was quite reliant on dairy and spices, it tasted fine. It's possible. So again, yeah, I think it's the ideal is that there's no distinguishing feature between the two of them, and that people just roll up their sleeves and carve a traditional delicious pumpkin. But yeah, it seems like a real good area for us all to focus around and see if we can get Peace Please involved with.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you for that. And this links really well with the call for recipes that I've put out there. Hubbub has already compiled a good list of recipes, but if organizations out there have more recipes they would like to share, that would be hugely helpful, especially for more things you can do with the more carving type of pumpkins. Things like incorporating them in curries or sweet dishes. Please don't be shy, share your recipes and we'll add them to the toolkit. And there was one more point in questions being raised around cleaning. So thank you, Ren, for your input. There's a good point here about when to run your event. So if you're planning a big event like a disco soup, Hannah suggests run it after Halloween because that's when there will be surplus pumpkins. It sounds a bit obvious, but if you want to share any more on this point, Hannah or Tessa.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea to run your smaller events in the run-up to Halloween, because then you're spreading the message so that people are, when they're carving their pumpkin, they've got their pumpkin recipe in front of them that they picked up from community Halloween events. But the big disco soup that we tend to have at the end of the festival, we tend to have that on the Saturday or the Sunday, the weekend after Halloween. And that, like Sophia said, that really does mean that if there's a van load of pumpkins coming our way, then we've got a way of dealing with it, and we cook as many of them as we can, and the rest of them are just left out for people to take home. So it really does solve a real life issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with Hannah completely on smaller events in the run up. The only thing that we've kind of had in our experience over the last few years is that Some pumpkin farmers will give you pumpkins in advance of Halloween, but they wouldn't really want gleaners on site because they tend to be running a kind of crazy 24-hour operation in the days up to Halloween. But sometimes there are pumpkins or squash that don't meet cosmetic standards. So we've had all kinds of things that have meant to be going into certain veg boxes and are just too small. And so the farmer might just leave them at the side and you turn up, fill your zip van and go off again. But if you want something that is more of a community-based glean, and I think that's the better way to hammer home the message, then absolutely post-Halloween is the time to do it. And there's no reason not to do something actually that incorporates apples or another seasonal fruit and veg and kind of bundling it all up under the same autumnal vegetable rescue.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to the end of the questions. I would like to say a special thank you to our wonderful presenters, Tessa and Hannah. Thank you so much for your inspiring presentations. I will leave the chat running for a few more minutes if you want to leave any more ideas in there. But thank you so much for participating in this webinar. And we'll be in touch with recording and presentation. So thank you very much and have a good afternoon.